Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to show you how to make a Z-style gatefold card. It's really easy and we're not going to use a lot of supplies. So what I've done here first is I've taken a piece of watercolor paper that is 5.5 inches by 12 inches and I'm scoring it 2 inches and 4 inches in from each edge. And the stamps I'm using, I'm going to be giving away on my blog. I'll put a link in the video description so you can sign up to win. They're from our sponsor Art Neko. You can find them at artneko.com and they have a gorgeous selection of stamps that are super versatile. So what I'm doing here is marking each side of my cardstock at 2.5 inches, and that's going to give me a little guidepost for cutting my card so I get that really cool Z-fold when I fold on my score marks. So see here, I'm just going to go from the second score in on each side to the notch on the edge, and I'm just going to slice that off with my craft knife. And then after cutting off each side, you're simply going to fold in your edges so you get a double gatefold side, and that little angled cut that we made makes a nice little reveal. So if you were to do this with double-sided paper, it would look fantastic, but I'm going to show you how to stamp your own double-sided paper in case you don't have any, because it's always a good idea to learn how to use your supplies and make them more versatile. I decided to stick with one stamp set. It's basically a branch with some flowers on it. It looks kind of like cherry blossoms, and then there's a couple little single blossoms that go with that, and 2 colors of ink. We're going to stamp one side of this sheet, which is watercolor paper, as I mentioned before, with red flowers, and we're going to do the other side with blue flowers. But what we're going to do is kind of use these stamps in a very versatile way. First, we're going to stamp them on with the ink, and then you can see I smushed my ink pad on a stamping block there so I'd have a little palette, and then we're simply going to watercolor those flowers using a wet brush and the ink that we put on the acrylic block there. It's a great way to get a watercolor look if you don't own any watercolors, and it will absolutely match your stamping, which I think is really great. I only stamped on the edges of the center panel here with the red flowers because I intend this to be the inside of my card and I'll want a little room for writing in the future. On the side panels though, you can go ahead and fill that in with beautiful flowers and then color it in with your ink. And then if you want to, you can splash on some juicy ink just like you would with watercolors to give it more of a painterly feel. And then after the red side was dry, I simply did the exact same thing on the back side of the card, but this time using navy blue ink. You can drag the color around with a wet brush and leave it at that, or add in a little bit more blue ink applied the same way as we did before. Just press that ink pad onto a clear stamping block and use it as a palette to color in your design. After it was dry, I decided to dust on some color because I thought the look of the flowers against the white watercolor paper was too stark, so I simply used a color duster brush, you could use a sponge if you prefer, and picked up that same exact color ink and just kind of rouged the edges just to make it look a little more cohesive. Then I went ahead and did the same thing with the red ink on the other side of the card. At this point, I wanted to see how the card would look just folded up, so I folded it at the edges in, and I realized I needed a little something extra to make this card pop. So I grabbed a roll of fabric washi tape that I actually picked up at the Dollar Tree years ago, and I decided to add that to all of the edges. That way it would have almost like a little bit of almost like a seam binding type of look all the way around, kind of like clothing does. I thought that would add a nice touch. I like to add a belly band around gatefold cards. It keeps them closed when you want them to be closed, and it also adds a nice decorative element because sometimes the gatefold is fancy enough that you don't want to do too much decorating, but on its own it can look a little flat. So I just took a scrap of watercolor paper and wrapped it around, and then I decided to decorate it with a flower, brad, and some more of that pretty washi tape. I took some silk flowers that I had just hanging around in my stash that were white, and I decided to hit them with the red ink and then spritz them with water to kind of dye them to match my project. Then after the ink had all blended, I decided to hit the edges again on the ink pad to bring out a little bit of dimension. I found that if I heated these with my heat tool, they slightly shrink and get a little texture, which makes them perfect for this project. Next, I simply edged a little paper belly band that I made with some of that fabric washi tape. And I used a needle tool to poke a hole in the belly band so that I could easily insert a brad through my flower to attach it to the belly band. And then I hand wrote my sentiment, which is a great idea if you don't have a lot of stamps. You can simply write what you want to say. And then all you have to do is slide the belly band over your card and you're all set. Of course, you have to write a note in the middle of the card to your recipient, but this gets the card making done and out of the way. I find that if you slightly scrunch your gatefold card, it slides in the belly band much easier because you do want that kind of snug so it doesn't slide off. I hope you enjoyed this limited supply card for this week's Stamp School episode, and I hope you check out our sponsor, ArtandEcho.com. They offer 10% off if you mention the Frugal Crafter when you order, or free shipping if your order's over $50. You get whatever deal is greater, which is really nice. And don't forget to stop by the blog, thefrugalcrafter.wordpress.com, for your chance to win the stamps that I used today. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting!